עם ישראל חי. Shabbat Shalom.
I am here to support the hostages coming back home.
It gives us hope seeing hostages actually being freed.
We want to seal the deal and see everybody back home.
Some of them have survived. Nobody knows yet.
Some of them could be dying as they're waiting to be freed.
My roommate is held captive, and I don't know when the last time he saw daylight was.
We were waiting for them for more than 470 days. We want the war to end.
We are seek for peace. We don't seek for war. This is Israel.
The first phase of the Israel-Hamas ceasefire is nearing completion. Hamas released the final group of living hostages.
Trump, I love you because you are number one in the world.
Everybody I've spoken to loves the idea of the United States owning that piece of land, developing and creating thousands of jobs with something that will be magnificent.
What's the Trump plan?
Americans taking over Gaza, getting rid of the Gazans, and then rebuilding it a la Miami Beach.
The Riviera of the Middle East, this could be something that could be this could be so magnificent.
I think Netanyahu sees Trump as somebody who can be easily manipulated, as gullible. It's not going to happen. There's too much objection already. The idea was that the Palestinians, well, why don't they go to Jordan? Why don't they go to Egypt? Well, the Egyptians don't want Palestinians, the Jordanians don't want more Palestinians, so it's not going to happen.
Is there any Arab nations that are willing to accept Palestinians as refugees?
No.
None of the Arab states are going to take numbers of Palestinian refugees. They don't want that instability in their society.
Hamas is a terror organization and they're still in charge in Gaza.
All the radicals need to get out of there.
And the whole area should go through a complete renovation and big projects.
I am King Sharshar.
Sharshar המלך כולם מכירים, Sharshar המלך כולם אוהבים.
King Sharshar, you see King Sharshar.
Sharshar המלך עוזר לחיילים, Sharshar המלך מפזר מזומנים.
0507-328-999. I come special for you.
Is this your phone number?
What?
Was this your phone number?
Yes.
When I'm seeing it now, I think he wanted Trump to call him.
Is there a lot of guys like this in Israel?
I wish there were. If there were, this place would have been a much happier place, you know?
The 7th of October was a Holocaust. You do not understand it. You think that poor people in Gaza, so poor. No. The Hamas.
King Sharshar. Sharshar is a special man because I am going all the soldiers.
What does Sharshar mean?
I think it's just a bunch of necklaces, because Sharshar is Sharsheret, it's a necklace. So I think King Sharshar is the king of necklaces.
Sharshar אוהב את כולם.
Agat, thanks so much for joining us. I appreciate it. Thanks for the work you've done so far, and thanks for heading out there and getting this footage.
החטופות, הלוויות האמיתיות שלנו חוזרות.
It's a beautiful day.
We have a lot of hostages there too, so we're waiting for them too.
This is crazy.
So for those who don't know, what was going on in this video?
All right, so that day was the day of the second wave of hostages arriving.
Hamas freed 6 hostages from Gaza Saturday, the last living Israeli captives to be released under the first phase of the ceasefire.
So when they arrived from Gaza to Israel, they had this one spot where they met with their close families. And then from there, they arrived to the hospital directly. And just people from Israel just wanted to greet them, welcome them with signs and stuff like that.
Averu Mengistu, in Hamas captivity for more than 10 years.
Seems like this first guy you talked to was a dual citizen.
I live here in Israel, in Petah Tikva actually, so close by, but I'm from Montana, United States.
Yeah. You know what I mean? So he's from the US and he lives there in Petah Tikva, which is a small city. I have no idea why he lives there specifically, but there were all kinds of people just trying to welcome the hostages.
We take care of each other. I am with you. Continue the fighting that all the hostages will come back.
So a few days later, you were able to sit down with Luis Har, an Argentinian man who was kidnapped by Hamas on October 7th.
Hi, Luis. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this interview with us.
And he's Argentinian.
He's Argentinian. Yeah, Nir Yitzhak was the kibbutz where his partner lives. He just came to visit her, and then they were abducted from there.
A lot of people might wonder, why would somebody from Argentina live in Israel?
I asked him this. He didn't want to get into it, really, so I don't want to speak by his name, but there were a lot of Argentinian people that were kicked out from Argentina and forced to leave in some way or another back in the 70s.
On the basis of religion?
Yeah, on the basis of religion, because they were Jews.
On October 7th, we were at Clara's house, my partner. And in the morning at 6:30, the airstrikes began. And then the alarm started to go off. So we thought they're ruining another Saturday. We didn't take it seriously because we were already used to it. Then we told everyone to get into the safe room. And then we thought we'll hear a boom, we'll wait for 10 minutes and go out. But it continued on and on. And it was nonstop. The sirens just wouldn't stop. Alarm after alarm after alarm. And then we turned on the TV and we saw that a white pickup truck entering the city of Stredot. With terrorists inside, shooting in all directions, everywhere. And a while after, we saw Netanyahu announcing that we were at war. And then we started to take it more seriously. And we also started to receive WhatsApp notifications from friends who were in the distress, who had intruders break into their homes. Shouting in Arabic, running around and smashing everything. Suddenly, we started hearing gunfire outside and the sound of glass shattering in our home. They entered through the windows, and then Clara, who is a kindergarten teacher by profession, told us that we needed to stick close to each other on the floor in the corner of the room. And that's basically what saved us, because they shot at the door. Then they started into the safe room, firing as they entered. So we started shouting at them not to shoot, not to shoot. And they stopped. Then they took us, they dragged us out brutally, pulled us out of the safe room. And when we were out of the safe room, when we could somehow lift our heads and see what was happening, we saw that the whole house was full of terrorists. They were moving around, breaking everything, running, shouting, and that's how they dragged us out of the house. And from there, they started moving towards the border, which is 3 kilometers away. On the way, there was a group of teenagers holding large hedge clippers, opening and closing them, making gestures at us as if they were going to kill us. They really wanted to lynch us, but the ones in the white pickup truck stopped, fired shots into the air, shouted Allah Akbar, and kept going. Suddenly, they stopped, pulled us out, and pushed us through a low gate. It was the entrance to a tunnel. It was incredibly difficult to get in there. We had to hold on to the walls to keep from falling. We couldn't see anything. It was complete darkness. The floor was covered in stones, sand, and plastic bags. I don't even know what was inside. And there was cables everywhere. And they kept pushing us forward. We were certain that was it, that we would left underground. Every door that opened, we thought it was the end, but no, we kept going. They started asking us if we were Jews. They shouted, Jews, Jews, and we answered, Argentinians, Argentinians, Messi, Messi. It didn't help much, but we tried. So we kept going. We were inside the tunnel for about 4 to 5 hours, constantly running. There were moments when the tunnel's height was about this low, so we had to crawl. Suddenly, they sat us down on the side and started taking us one by one. We had no idea where they were taking us. It was the last one. When it was my turn, I looked and they took me to the right. Then I saw a steep dirt wall with metal rods, like stairs. It was incredibly sharp, hard to grip. One hand, one foot. Another hand, another foot. Like slowly figuring out how to play with it, to hold on so I wouldn't fall. It wasn't easy. Those who couldn't make it were tied with a rope and pulled up, just like with their weapons. They piled them up. They tied them up together and lifted them that way. When we got up, we noticed that it was daylight. We were happy. The people on the streets acting as usual, as if nothing was happening. Kids were playing soccer. Children were coming out of school. From there, they put us into a car. The girls and I sat down in the back and Fernando was in the front. And that's how we drove through the alleys. We had no idea where we were. Today I know that it was already Rafah, meaning that between the tunnels We entered through Khan Yunis and exited in Rafah. They drove in circles, trying to confuse us, but we kept seeing the same buildings over and over again. Later on, we also started recognizing landmarks. Eventually, they brought us to a gate where there was a house. What looked like an unfinished house under construction, but it seemed like that. But when we got there and they took us up the stairs, we saw that the inside, it was a fully furnished home. They sat us down in what seemed like a men's lounge. We spoke to each other in Spanish in order to be able to talk about them without them understanding. And then the first one we saw, we named him the boss of the house. And he was somehow trying to be nice with us. And he told us, "Don't stress, we kidnapped you to exchange you for our prisoners in Israel jails." Then he turned around and said, "I will protect you." And we were really confused. We were wondering what he would protect us from. Why should he protect us? And then we realized he was protecting us from his own people. They were dangerous to us, always with their guns on us. So much hatred in their eyes. They were completely barbaric. Somehow he was different. He tried to make us like him. He gave us water every day and made sure we had what we needed. And he also told us, "If you need anything, come to me. I'll try to get anything or whatever you need." That's it. That's how our life in captivity began.
That's a pretty unusual experience, right?
Yeah. Most of the hostages are held in tunnels.
Well, they were being held in tunnels for the most part. We don't know exactly where, because if I knew where, of course, the Israelis would have known where beforehand.
He stayed above the ground in a house. I know that some were kept that way also, but the majority were kept in tunnels or still there, yeah.
In the evening, they brought us a bun with a piece of canned meat. So we didn't ask questions. We just ate it. So that's how we were there for 2 or 3 days. And then suddenly they came and told us they were moving us to another house. So in the middle of the night, they took us one by one. But in that house, the living room where we sat was in the back, not in facing the street, because they were afraid that if people on the street heard us, the local population would realize there were hostages there, and they might try to lynch us or something. They wanted to keep us alive so they can get a better price for us.
So why do you think he was given preferential treatment over the other hostages?
I think it was just random, to be honest, because you had different groups holding different hostages, and each one of them just kind of did whatever they wanted. Like Luis said that the commander that held him wanted him to be safe, so the leverage when they negotiate the deal would be higher for him, because when they negotiate people that are alive, the price they get back, Hamas, is higher.
The unit that received us at that house, they were more, let's say, normal. One of them was somehow friendly. He spoke to us and helped us. And all of the rest, not at all. Only hatred in their eyes. So we saw quite a broad range of humanity, and we started adapting to life in captivity. How did we pass the time? Either sitting or lying down, doing nothing. Clara tried to keep us active with all sorts of activities in the place or playing games. We also played 7 Boom, except the booms were coming from outside. But it helped us to pass the time.
Okay, what's 7 Boom?
7 Boom is just a game where you go, each double of 7, you just say boom.
Like 7, 14,
yeah.
21, boom.
Yeah.
I've learned a lot about Israel from your correspondence. I know 3 words. Sheket.
Sheket?
Which I thought meant peace, but it actually means be quiet. I told my girl's family, I said, sheket. And they're like, what? And then I know.
That's rude.
Yalla is like, what up? Or like, sounds good.
Yalla is a lot of things, yeah.
And then I know terror, which is terror.
אלו תומכי טרור בפועל.
טרור?
terror.
חיזבאללה זה ארגון טרור.
טרור.
Terror. All right, my bad. We're getting off track. Let's go back to the interview.
So after 129 days there, suddenly the IDF arrives. We had no idea what was happening. I open my eyes and I see bullets flying everywhere. It's almost impossible to see anything. Someone grabbed my head, pushed it down, and whispered in my ear, "Luis, it's the IDF. We are here to take you home." That was the moment I realized it was a commando unit and that I was in the safest hands in the world. And there they spoke over the radio on the communication device and said, the diamonds are in our hands. That was the code. The signal to everyone that we were now in their hands and that we were beginning our journey back home. And that's it. We got on board and they flew us back to Israel. We arrived at Tel Hashom Hospital where the doctors were waiting for us. Then our families started arriving. We saw everyone. All the 5 of us who were kidnapped from the safe room hugged together, safe and free. We were taken from our homes, from our safe place. We need to end this. They all have to be brought back.
Yo, what's up guys? The situation in Israel is one of the most significant and precarious global events unfolding right now. One day there's a ceasefire, the next day bombs are dropping, and the way it's being reported depends entirely on where you look. Different outlets push different agendas, shaping the story to fit their own narratives, which is why independent reporting matters, and we here at Channel 5 are committed to bringing you raw, unfiltered coverage straight from the streets. But before we even put boots on the ground, we get informed using Ground News. Ground News is a dope-ass news aggregate that lets you see exactly how different media outlets, both left, right, and center, are covering the same stories, using their biased distribution tool. For example, let's take a look at how the Israel-Palestine conflict is being covered. Here, the Gaza Health Ministry says 50,000 have been killed since the beginning of the war. The story is being covered predominantly by the left and the center. But the story about Israel's voluntary migration plan is barely being covered by the center and the left, and predominantly being covered by the right. With Ground News, you can track these narratives and see what's actually being said on both sides, and most importantly, what's being left out. And if you want to dig even deeper into the evil media cabal, the ownership tool tracks the corporate interests and ownership shares behind major news outlets, so you can see who's really controlling the narrative. Journalism is supposed to be a tool to hold the powerful accountable, but when the news organizations are owned by massive corporations, the bottom line often takes priority over the truth. But that's not how we do things at Channel 5, which is why we trust Ground News to help guide us in the right direction. And for right now, using my QR code or link, you can subscribe and get 40% off the Unlimited Vantage plan, which comes out to less than $5 a month. As I mentioned, just scan this QR code or click the link below to sign up. Supporting Ground News means supporting Channel 5, which means we can keep making videos like this and giving you in-depth coverage of real shit, not watered down or dictated by the corporate forces that be. So check it out, stay informed, and don't let the media tell you how to think. All right, back to the streets of Israel.
Of course, Hamas did these horrible things, but we have to remember two things. Netanyahu and his government knew they are the enemy, but Netanyahu was feeding them with money from Qatar in cash so it won't be traced, strengthening Hamas. Netanyahu was trying either to buy quiet from Hamas by feeding him with money, but more thing, his plan was to avoid the two-state solution, to avoid pressure on him to go to negotiation on the two-state solution. He was making sure Hamas will be strong enough against the Palestinian Authority, so the Palestinians will stay split between the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank and Hamas in the Gaza Strip. Then he could say, hey, how can I go for a negotiation? They are not united. So he did this thing to make sure he won't be pressured to go for a two-state solution. It doesn't matter if the two-state solution is something that needs to be done or not. But the way he did it, strengthening the biggest enemy against Israel, was his heinous doing, and we know the results.
I think it's important to clarify that the hostages weren't released as a result of Israeli military might. It was a trade.
It was a trade.
So in exchange for these hostages, we had to pull out of areas in Gaza. We also had to give back thousands of terrorists that have killed Israeli citizens.
Israel is set to release more than 600 Palestinian prisoners.
זה כל ההבדל בין חיילת שנחטפה בפיג'מה או תינוק בן 8 חודשים לבין אסירה שמשתחררת כי היא דקרה נער בן 14 ברחוב.
It's a lot to pay, but it's worth it when you see these hostages land on the ground.
So a few dozen hostages were traded for 1,600 Palestinian prisoners being held in Israeli detention facilities.
Yeah, that's what I hear, something like that.
From what it seems like, even what we're seeing at this event, that has kind of created some controversy.
We feel there are elements in Israel who don't want it to go through, extremists and zealots who don't want to see this happening for their reasons.
There is a big fear that it will not get into its completed phase. There is a very big concern that the Prime Minister has a motivation to break the deal in order to stay in power, because some fraction in his coalitions are threatening that if the deal will be completed and we shall not return to war, they will withdraw from the coalition, and this way it will end his reign, his prime ministry era.
This man didn't just make a theoretical statement here. The day after this interview was conducted, his prediction about Netanyahu losing Orthodox support came true. So throughout the war, Netanyahu's majority coalition has had a 56% majority in the Israeli government, holding 67 out of 120 governmental seats. Within his coalition is a radical faction called Atzma Yehudit, or Jewish Power, who hold 7 of those seats.
If Jewish Power is stronger, they will be able to ask Netanyahu for more things. He will not have a choice.
He will make sure Netanyahu finally does something.
So that faction, Jewish Power, believes in the total dissolution of all Palestinian territories. And on the day after the hostage trade and ceasefire deal went through, the radical faction's leader, Itamar Ben-Gvir, formally withdrew Atzma Yehudit from Netanyahu's coalition.
One of the most hardline ministers in Benjamin Netanyahu's hardline government is out.
Meaning that Netanyahu is literally 1 seat away from losing majority power, which puts a lot of Israelis on edge, especially given the fact that there are still many hostages being held in Gaza.
This phase is dealing only with 32 hostages. There are another 60 that are going to be left behind.
Fears are growing about what will happen next with the ceasefire.
My son is not in the first deal, and we are waiting, anxious to see who will be released next.
We're not 100% sure if they're alive or dead. We just really want everybody to come back home.
Because there are still 90 hostages, including my brother. Or and his wife Einav went to the Nova Music Festival. And a few minutes after, a group of terrorists arrived and started throwing grenades and sprayed his bomb shelter with bullets and even fired an RPG into it. He had to witness his wife being murdered in front of him.
Several weeks after these interviews were filmed, on March 19, 2025, Israel, not Hamas, broke the ceasefire agreement, bombing Gaza and killing 400 people in their homes.
Red Cross headquarters in Rafah has been hit by an Israeli airstrike.
They also struck the Beirut suburb of Dahya, breaking their ceasefire with Hezbollah.
Israel's military said it hit a drone storage facility in the area belonging to the Iran-backed armed group.
Additionally, they suspended all humanitarian aid, like food, medical supplies, and water from entering Gaza.
The Prime Minister's office said the decision was taken because Hamas had refused to accept an American proposal.
This set the previously peaceful streets of Israel ablaze, as it was obvious that Netanyahu had caved to the pressure of his disenchanted Orthodox allies. According to Professor Gelvin, Israel is now preparing for the final stage of the war, which involves the deliberate creation of a famine in the hopes that between resource scarcity and weakened Hamas leadership, Gaza will destroy itself through infighting.
Now, what the Israelis are counting on is they're counting on non-Hamas warlords to be able to take control over certain areas within Gaza and keep Gaza sort of under bad governance on the one hand, but also keep Gazans occupied on their own turf battles within Gaza itself. There actually is a political science concept called warlordism. Okay. And it's the idea that, okay, when you remove the veneer of a state, when you remove the army, when you remove the police, all of a sudden what you're going to see is these local pockets that are going to emerge. And this is what happened in Syria, this is what happened in Yemen, this is what happened in Libya, this is what's going to happen in Gaza unless there is going to be some settlement. Now the Israelis are saying we don't want any Palestinian control whatsoever of Gaza. Well, what are they going to end up with? They don't want Palestinian control, but certainly none of the Arab countries want to take control either.
So basically, Hamas is still in charge in Gaza, right?
In Gaza, Hamas is still in charge because this government didn't paint any kind of future for the day after. So it's a vacuum that it only carried on with the current situation. There is no real serious plan who will replace them, when they will replace them, what will be the mandate of any fraction that will take power after them.
A week after Israel broke the ceasefire, Gaza saw its first open, anti-Hamas protest in decades.
Out Hamas, out, they're chanting.
Shocking international media as the streets of Israel continued to shout.
In Gaza, hundreds of people have taken part in the largest anti-Hamas protest there since the start of the war with Israel.
But still, in the absence of a concrete plan, the future of Gaza is still uncertain.
I want to trust Benjamin Netanyahu and President Trump that they will do whatever they can in their power to make sure that no group of fanatic people will control this region.
At the end of them, Hamas should be replaced in power, if I understood it correctly, in Gaza. All the hostages should be released. Israel should be withdrawn from the Gaza Strip. That citizens that are now refugees spread all over should return to what used to be their home.
Hopefully Trump will be able to figure something out, and other world leaders will step up and help Israel get everybody back home.
Hamas is still in power no matter what the Israelis say. Hamas is really in power. Israeli war aims have been to get rid of Hamas. They're not going to be able to do that. They're too integrated into the society of Gaza. They're the largest employer in Gaza. They're the administration of Gaza as well. So this is not something that's going to be, let's just get rid of Hamas and then we can put somebody else in. And that's why when everybody was saying how the Trump plan was so visionary, it's not. It's something that's going back to where things were. Palestinians are Palestinians. They're not generic Arabs. There's not 22 other places in the Arab world that can take them. They are Palestinians. And the Israelis even recognize that with the Oslo Accords, that the Palestinians comprise a nation. Now, a nation has a territory, and part of that territory is going to be Gaza. The other part of that territory is going to be the West Bank. So therefore, if we are going to have a solution to the question, it's going to have to be a two-state solution. It's going to have to be where Palestinians have a state of their own.
Do you believe in coexistence?
I do believe, but I don't know who is the partner on the other side right now. We have Arabs living in Israel and we coexist together peacefully. There's no reason why we can't do the same for the Gaza Strip or the West Bank. We need to make sure that another entity will enter this region in order to get to this stage, but it will take time for that to happen.
We have a long way to go with the Palestinians and to live two countries side by side. It will happen someday. We are on the way. Now it's the beginning.
The end of the conflict is a two-state solution. That's the only way that the conflict is going to end. There is no military solution for this. That constantly going back into Gaza and constantly going back into the West Bank is not going to work for the Israelis. That fundamentally what they have to do is make peace with the Palestinian national movement.
I remember whenever we did our first interview around a year and a half ago, you said you felt like the main reason that Hamas started the conflict was more or less to keep the Palestinian question alive.
Keep the question alive, make sure there's no compromise.
Do you feel like they were successful?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, right before October 7th, all we were talking about was Saudi Arabia and its possible peace deal with Israel. Now all we're talking about is Gaza. So they were absolutely capable of doing it. They absolutely did that. They achieved their war aim, which was to make it so that the Palestinian issue can no longer be ignored. And everybody and his brother is jumping on board to try to get some sort of peace deal going, try to figure out exactly how to resolve the issue. This is something that the Palestinians have done over and over and over again. I mean, basically, it looks like a tactical defeat, and it is a tactical defeat. But on the other hand, it is a strategic victory for the Palestinians. The Palestinian cause is now the front row problem in international relations. You have that, you have Ukraine, you have a couple of other ones. I mean, my last book, I wrote a chapter on whatever happened to the Israel-Palestine conflict was the name of the chapter. And this is what happened to the Israel-Palestine conflict.
Channel 5 live worldwide, Hollywood and Vine. Fuck the authority, Channel 5 News. Channel 55. We don't fuck with custers. And 5 is the best number.
Hey, what's up, guys? Oh, shit. Hey, man, thanks for that web link. It's really working. I don't know if you guys missed the memo, but we just dropped an entire feature film. That's right, a full-blown movie at www.dearkellyfilm.com.
DearKellyFilm.com.
It's an action-packed movie that revolves around the life and times of Kelly Johnson, a.k.a. Kelly J. Patriot.
Kobe Bryant was assassinated by the Clintons.
Come here, Nazi, you're going to Guantanamo.
Oh my gosh, what did I do? Am I getting canceled?
The Democrats don't like you, they're gonna cancel you. It documents his semi-estranged family and their attempt to pull him out of the rabbit hole.
Are you selling baby parts, yes or no? Don't tread on me! Don't even think about it!
I don't want to say too much, but it's a good movie. If you guys want to watch it, it would mean a lot. www.dearkellyfilm.com. It's available for rent and buy. You can rent it for $5.55, or you can buy it for $15.55.
www.dearkellyfilm.com. www.dearkellyfilm.com. www.dearkelly